All right, let's get started. So, hi everyone, and welcome to Mastering More4apps, Supercharge Your Oracle Financials in the ERP Cloud Toolbox. So, I'm Stephanie, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. Since this is a quick webinar, I just want to go over a few things before handing it over to our host, Rachana. So, everyone will receive today's recording most likely tomorrow, so just keep an eye out for that. And then after Rachana presents, we will begin our Q&A portion. During the session, feel free to put your questions in the Q&A box down below or in the chat. We will only answer them during that Q&A part towards the end, just to allow everyone to hear the entirety of the presentation and to hop off at the end if needed. And so a little bit about our host today. So Rachana has been in the Oracle ethos for over 20 years. She has extensive experience as a consultant implementing, upgrading, and supporting Oracle applications, ranging from Oracle 11i to cloud and spanning a breadth of modules across supply chain, procurement, inventory, and manufacturing. She is currently a board member in multiple OATUG special interest groups like AR and order management, and is a regular speaker and writer on the topic of supply chains. So let's get started. So Rachana, would you like to take it away?
Sure. Thank you, Stephanie. So yeah, I'll be happy to walk you through this webinar where we are introducing a few more efficiency tips as well as new features, functionality on the finance module. I've been with More4apps for about almost 10 years now and been on the product solution engineering side of things. And we'll introduce what we have launched in the past few weeks, months on the finance side on our cloud tools. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. So I might have to take away the screen share from you, Stephanie. Replace, yeah. I think I see a hand up, a hand raised. If there's something to address before, somebody has a hand raised.
Yeah, if you want to just put that in the chat and then we can get to that a little bit later. You can get started.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I've started sharing my screen, and first off, I am going to introduce the new features or functionality recently released in the finance module, which makes the accounts receivables life a lot more efficient and productive, especially those who are dealing with cash applications, remittances coming each day. Many times you get a bank remittance statement of all the receipts or all the customer payments that they got. And sometimes they have a reference to the invoice they're paying off, sometimes they don't. So how do we resolve that? How do we apply these payments to the right invoices? Sometimes you have to unapply them and reapply to the right one. So all that can be done from the comfort of Excel spreadsheets using our tools. So I'm going to start with the AR receipts application finance module feature. Okay, and I hope you can see my screen all right and hear me all right. So this is our finance module AR receipts, receivables receipts sheet. And as you can see, we have the receipt number, customers, information, and then we can do cross currency. All that is supported. And we can also do applications. There is apply as well as unapply action, where you can apply the receipt to an existing transaction number under the application reference, or you can unapply and reapply to another one, claim back the balance on the receipt and reapply to something else. Okay, so most often you might receive a remittance statement, message, or file, remittance file from the banks. So you can tailor this layout exactly to match that, as long as you have all the mandatory columns stacked up, or on one side you can easily reorder columns here. So let's say receipt ID is not something you would get from the bank or anything. So you can cut it off out of here. That's an auto field, so you can place it anywhere else. So it still functions. It's required by this uploader or our integrator, but it's not coming in any kind of file from external banks or anything. So you just stack it away on one side so that it's an easy copy and paste from the bank files. What you might get is probably the receipt number, or you might auto-generate the receipt number. Sometimes the receipt is already created. Here's the default values, and that probably touched on this in the prior webinars, but just to touch on it again, we have the default values, which can reduce your keystrokes for some of the repetitive data like receipt type, today's date. All these are repetitive data. Why to keep typing it for every receipt or every data row? You can just plug it in here once. Even if it's a formula, it's going to resolve to the value, and it's going to stick into the data rows when you upload. If it's blank, you leave it blank from the file, and it's going to stick it in when you upload. Okay, so let's assume we have received the information, all the payments and everything. We just paste it in this format. Okay, and we have this all filled out. Even the business unit and things can be defaulted. Okay, so we have a standard receipt. We give the dates. So most often what you would really get from them is the amount, maybe the customer information, remittance bank account numbers. We have that here. Okay, here's the currency, customer information. All this we can copy and paste, and we can stack it in any way, all the columns, so that it's an easy lift and paste, and we can fill that information. Okay. Now it could be just on the account where you can leave it blank for the apply section. So you can just leave it, or you can apply it if and when there is information of any kind of application. So pretty simple. On the application side, you can put the action as apply. Unapply would be for an existing receipt if you're taking off the balance, but on a new receipt, you would most likely have apply. Okay, and that's what I've done here. And application reference is the actual invoice number where you're applying this payment from the customer. Okay, so this is easy to filter out or pull up. Sometimes you might not know which value it's going to be, so you can always go into the data form. This will get the list of values from the instance. And in here, you can look for any of the open invoices to pay off. You can even see the balance. As you can see here, the amount due comes back. So you might even see right away that, okay, this is a zero balance. We don't even need to pay it off. Okay, you can actually search for invoices here based on your customer, just by the invoice number is the only thing mandated here. It'll figure out everything else on its own. So you can search by that, or you can limit the searches by the customer number, and that you can get only the invoices which are open for that customer. Okay, so I can do that. I can do a partial string search as I'm doing here. So out here, you can already see that the amount due is 0 here. There are some balances. Okay, so I can pick the right one that I want to apply it to. Okay, I can see some more details as I scroll to the right. So this makes it easy for me to pick the invoice if I have to. This is the original amount, the amount due, all the information is here. Okay, so that makes it easy for me to pick the right invoice. I can put an applied amount. I've just defaulted it. I just try to erode the balance very gradually so that I can reuse these invoices. But yeah, you can, if you leave it blank, it'll knock off the entire balance. That's how it works. So you can technically leave it all blank for the amount applied, and it'll try to take up the whole of the receipt header amount and apply it to the line level. Okay. Another method to create this is to actually, if you have the invoice number beforehand, you can download the invoice, the transaction number, and then create a receipt off of it. So you can actually just come to a blank area here, and I can search by just the receipt, the transaction numbers. Okay, so I can search for open invoices. I can put them in, I believe I can put it here. So when I do a download via sheet, it asks me if I'm looking for, or you can search by customer. Is it receipts or open receivables that I'm looking for? So I can point to that, and I can download details on, based on, the application reference or the customer also, I can do that. So here's the information related to this transaction. I can clear the download criteria instead of leaving it hanging here. So what this gives me is a head start on my entry, because I have already got the invoice, the balance, everything is in here. If I go to the header level, all I need to do is stick in some of the information here, but all my application information is already downloaded. And this could be a large list. I could be doing this for not just one, but I could be doing it for a whole list of transactions, download all of them. Okay, and then I can easily stick in the amount I have to pay back, applied amount, and then just stick in the header information and create receipts out of it. So both ways work. You start with the receipt information, you copy paste from a file, and then fill in the invoice information, the application information afterwards, or go backwards. Start from the open receivables and create the receipt based on that. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at what I have set up here. Okay, so we have a bunch of remittance information. We plug it in here. I've kept the name or the receipt number blank. Okay, because I'm allowing it to default using some formula, so it'll automatically default. Even the dates are blank, it'll automatically default those. And then I have a bunch of applications here, just by the same method that I used on pulling up the invoice numbers. Okay, based on the currency, based on open balances, I've just stuck in some invoice numbers here. But it's easy to just go in and search it up using the data form, copy paste it. As long as you know the invoice number, I can just copy that and paste it in here. Okay, so as long as I know there is a balance, I can take that, just paste it on one of these, okay? And it should be able to pull everything else. All right, so let's go ahead and create some of these receipts with the applications. So let's do that here. And take away all these names, and then let's do that here. So I'm going to highlight this batch here. I can do the whole sheet, but there's a lot of stray data. So I'm just going to highlight this batch and upload this. So as you know, this will validate everything, trickle down all the list of values, trickle down all the default values rather, and validate everything against the list of values, bring back any validation messages, and whatever is clean is passed into the web services. Okay. So it just got 16 batched receipts. There is something to resolve. It'll always highlight what the problem is. And then for the others, it's going to process and bring back whether or not it's able to create an applied receipt or not. Okay. Few errors where probably the transaction numbering is incorrect, but everything else got accepted. We can go down and look for the errors. Some at the header level, which indicate that I should look at the header messages here, customer name. So I've been flitting between instances. Probably these names do not exist on this instance. Some errors are at the application level. So I go down to the application level and look for my error messages here. Okay. You cannot enter. Yeah. So probably something with, these are API errors. So these are coming from the Oracle instance directly. These are not validation errors. And it's talking about something with the valid customer name, account, and all of that. Okay, so something is not matching. But yeah, we can walk through that and we can pull up the data form, correct that, and go for a reload. Okay, so these are created receipts now. Let's see how we can unapply and reclaim the balance. So you'll see that these are the receipt numbers. I'll just take a handful of them, come down to a blank area down here, paste these, and I want to paste the values, not the formulas, because that is going to reset the row numbers. And then I'm going to download these via sheet. And as we saw before, it can download open receivables, but this time we are downloading receipts because we want to unapply the balances. Okay. So here it'll also tell you what was the original receipt number, what are the applications on that, and it could be multi-line. You could have multiple applications on a receipt. Okay, and it'll tell you what is left over as a balance. So this was the entered amount, unapplied amount, you can see that here. Okay, so this is the original amount, this is the unapplied, and this is the applied amounts. Total applied amount, this is the unapplied amount. Okay, and then I can say that, okay, I don't want to really apply all this amount from this receipt. Rather, I want to reclaim all these balances. So I can just go in here, look at the applications in the application section, and there is a different action called unapply, which will take away all that balances and then put it back onto the receipt on account. Pretty simple. And then you can always go and reapply. You can download the receipt and reapply to something else. Something with the application ID and the receipt ID not matching up. Yeah, there's something with the inconsistency. Oh, because I did create. I forgot to remove create here. And that threw it off. It thought it's trying to create, or is it trying to unapply? So I'm going to take that off from the default. I have to be careful not to keep that. And then I'm going to try to re-upload. So it's basically saying receipt ID should not be there when you're doing the create records. So that was more like a user error. Once I take it off, it understands there's only one action, which is go into the existing receipt and unapply, and that comes back clean. So that will take all of the balance back onto the receipt. So very simply, this is how you can do cash applications. Many times you can set it up, and sometimes people do RPA, automation so that it can take the file from the email or remittance file and then pour it into here or map it into here and even run these processes. So many times I've seen that they can even make it into a hands-free kind of a seamless application. Okay, let's go to credit memos. That's another area where the receivables and the finance team works a lot on. Again, on credit memos, we always had that, but recently we added the ability to make it an applied credit memo. So very simply, we've just added an application section here where we had the headers, lines, distributions. Now we have the apply section. Works very much like what we saw on the receipts. You can apply for the apply transaction number. Okay, this is the apply transaction number, and the automatically it will pull in customer name and everything. And you can do it at the time of creation, or you can add the application to an existing credit memo. Okay, so very intuitive, and all these columns are pretty familiar to anybody working on credit memos. So I've just populated it. The same thing applies here. You can either copy paste or fill it using the data forms. The first time around, you can take the help of the data forms to give you all the prompts that it requires, what is required, what are the valid values. Once you fill it on one record or one row, then it's better to just copy and paste using Excel functionality. Okay, so here are the header level credit memo type, dates, pretty much standard, your credit reason why you're generating this credit memo. If there are any approvals required, that'll trigger off downstream automatically. Okay, so here's your line level details. And then on the application, I'm just pointing to an apply transaction number. No other detail is needed. You can, again, copy this in from anywhere. And right now it's at the time of creating the credit memo, but it could be done after the fact or as well. You just have to download an existing credit memo and then just put an action of create on the apply section. And then you wouldn't have any action on the header section. So similar to what we did on the receipts, I'd forgotten to take off the create record. So just take it off, take off any action here, just do an apply on the credit application section. Okay. So this is pretty simplistic and almost repetitive from what we saw on the other one. So I'm just going to blow this through the upload. Few little tips here. You can always go to another Excel, another integrator while this is plugging away using a new Excel session. And that's when you right click and have your control key pressed. And you can click on Excel and it'll open up a new Excel session. Okay. So there comes the validation. I don't think I've seeded any errors in here, hopefully. So it will just come back with either a red error or accepted green, confirming if things have gone in. So going forward, these new things, new features, functionality, these come in right now. We introduce them, we release them as they come. Going forward, we're going to stick to a release train, kind of a cadence, kind of a quarterly release. We'll talk more about it in the upcoming webinars, but that's going to streamline what is coming in and how to prepare for it. It'll just give you more visibility and control over how to plan your processes around upgrading this alongside how you upgrade Oracle, do the testing, your alongside your quarterly releases. Similar thing can be done here. Okay, so I was mistaken. There are a lot of errors here. Oh, there should be negative sign. I think it's saying that there is some negative sign needed here. So I violated that, I think. The unit price. Okay. Okay, so I should have the quantity negative, but not the price. Okay, so probably that was the error there. And on the application status, probably I have a few invoices which are not valid or didn't have the right balances. Okay, so it's just telling me applied amount couldn't be provided by default. Okay, so I'll just have to put an exact amount. Okay, so that's how it operates. And yeah, we can work through. Welcome to put in your questions, or we usually work with you all when you upgrade and start a new feature. Our support team has been very good at working on any issues while upgrading, or while you face anything, any questions in including these new features. Okay. Next up, the other thing we made simpler was on AP invoice side. So I'll navigate over quickly from the receivables to the payables audience here. And in this, what we have done is PO matching has become a lot more simpler. So we always had PO matching where you can put in your PO number at the header level, or even at the line level, you can go in and point to a PO number, the line on the PO where you want to match it. So that was the traditional method of doing the PO matched invoices. So pretty much like this, how I've set it up and created a few matched invoices. So you have your PO at the header level, you can put a invoice number, and then you can point at the line level to the exact PO and the line, okay, and how much is getting paid off, okay. So all that could have been done, but now it's a little simpler in the way that you can actually just start with the PO number, like I did on the receipt also, I think. So you want to save some of the data entry, right? So you just have the PO numbers that you're going to match against. You can throw them here under the line PO number and go in here and download. On the payables sheet, you're actually downloading the PO information. Okay, so although this is an AP invoice integrator, it can go in and directly pull the PO information. So as you can see here, the download operates on AP invoices, which is this obviously the seeded underlying object under this AP invoice sheet. But you can also go into POs and download all these PO information. So when I point to the source as being POs, it's going to look for anything under the line PO number, get back all the balances, the supplier information, everything. So that gives you a huge head start on, oh, that's a lot more than I thought. Okay, so I'll just clear the download criteria, but you can see that it brings me the unit price, quantity, everything all filled out. So that makes the AP clerk's life much easier. All you need to do is say create records. Here's the PO number, give it an invoice number, which I can easily do it by doing a formula on the top. Okay, keep it unique with row number. And these are all single line, but yeah, you can basically, if you collapse some of the headers, you can make it into a multi-line application. So the standard invoice type, currency, amount, I'm changing it, keeping it the same as the line level because this is single line. I can do that. Okay. So very simply, I can just download the PO and straight away I can upload it back up. Okay, I think I've put the amount as a small amount that I'm applying, or rather matching. Okay. So this was almost like hands-free. If you have a list of POs that you want to match invoices against, you just throw them in here, download, and straight away hit upload with everything pre-tailored on the sheet, pre-configured on the sheet with all the defaults and everything on my saved sheet. It was literally no keying in of any data. Okay, let's see what it came back with. Okay, all green and accepted. So we have created all of these PO matched invoices here. Okay. And the line quantity had defaulted to 1. So that's why it's just taking a wee bit out of the original PO. I'm not using it all up, just one at a time. And that's because I put the default as 1. But you can definitely make it to match the entire open balance on the PO to be paid and everything. Okay. So that's how this is. You can submit this for invoice validation directly just by entering yes on this. You can do it once on the top and it'll submit as it creates, it'll submit the invoice validation. Okay, so those are the few things on the payables and the receivables side that were introduced recently. That makes it easier, more efficient for finance teams. I don't think I had anything missing. Few other tips that we all know, we have already talked, we have informed our users on several sessions, but I'll just touch on that. The template building is a lot more flexible now. When you go into the template, layout designer comes up. Basically, if I'm saying receivables, receipts, it allows me to design my template now. This has been on for a few months already. So you can pick and choose the columns. And even after doing that and creating a sheet, you can remove columns just like on the Excel sheet by doing a column select and remove or reorder and all of that. But this has also been a neat feature earlier this year that we introduced. Okay. So that's all I had to bring. And yeah, as I said.
All right. Yeah, we can get to the Q&A portion then, right, Rachana? You ready?
Sure. Yes, ready for that.
I do have a few questions. And so if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to raise your hand and I can unmute you. But for the first one, it's a big one. How different is this tool when compared to FBDI and ADFDI?
Sure. Yes. So as you can see here, you have all of it in one sheet. I never had to go flitting between several tabs to tie together any data, the header, line, detail. And this is more evident on master data. You'll see that it's across customers, suppliers, everything is on one sheet from the top to bottom, parent, child. So you don't have to stitch together various tabs as you have to do on FBDI. Secondly, there's validation right here on the sheet. You saw that I could pull up open balances. It told me that if something was incorrect, the customer name is incorrect, it tells me right away. It doesn't tell me after the fact, once it's loaded, and then I have to comb through a lot of log files to see the error messages and come back and reprocess. So there's not any hopping away from this one sheet that I am in. So start to finish the entire process I can do sitting in Excel without hopping away. Okay, so the advanced validation and having a single spreadsheet makes it a lot easier. And then the flexible layout, as you could see that I could move around columns. I can do away with a lot of columns, which I don't need. Whereas in FBDI or other tools out there, you have to be quite rigidly sticking to the layout that they provide. And you cannot do away with the clutter of so many columns. And then this is completely supported. You can work with users directly. IT is not even involved. You can move IT out of the equation. They can free themselves up for more value-added projects while we work with the users on the TDM of day-to-day uploads and resolving any data issues. So that way it's a huge leap. That's
Great.
what we heard from our users. Yeah. Any follow-ups?
Got another question for you. There's a follow-up. I'll get back to the other question, Thomas. Fair enough. And do we have something to view the existing data, either payment interface or base table data from the same Excel template?
So base table, if I'm getting it right, is the invoices, let's say, or the receipts. So yes, you can get the existing receipts using the download functionality, what I've done before. So you can actually search for any existing receipts by the receipt number. Let's say I'm on a blank sheet here. I can paste the receipt numbers, or I can paste the receipt date, method, business unit, anything marked by these pointer columns are searchable, queryable. So I can throw in a list of existing receipt numbers, and this, when I do a download, is actually getting it from the receipt base tables, as we might call it. There's nothing here for interface because we are not even using interfaces. We are going through the web services. But yeah, it is getting from the receipt core tables here, existing information. So you could treat it as a quick report. You could use it for unapplying, reapplying existing receipts. The same exists on AP invoices as well. Whenever you see a download, it's actually getting from the core base tables behind that entity.
All right, I have another question for you. Can
Mhm.
approvals be included in this as a pre-fusion approval process for both AR, AP?
So we rely on all the workflows within Oracle. We don't do any approval upfront here. You can do it on email or something. They could have a process established, but yeah, out of the box, we don't incorporate any approval process here. I've seen others do some kind of macros, emails going and sending. Even on the EBS side, we had the same answer. You could build some macro or some process around it where the file is sent ahead and you need approvals, but yeah, nothing within the product. We rely entirely on Oracle.
Okay, cool. Another one. Are we able to see user activity for auditing purposes?
Mhm. Yeah, so on what is the usage or the activation on the license, I could talk about that. On the audit side of things, basically when I log in, it's recording my username and I mean, not the password, sorry, it's recording my username. So whenever I make a new receipt or I do an application, unapply, any activity, it's always recorded on my login information, as if you're doing it on the forms, just that you're doing it all sped up. But it is the same as the recording, the audit of what the activity was on that purchase order or the invoice is recorded as if you're doing it from the forms. And in terms of what the license usage has been, if the seats you have and how the usage has been, how many activations, for that there is a report on community. So maybe I could go over there if that was the intent of the question rather than the transactional audit.
Yeah, I think you could probably show
Sure.
the article a little bit.
Sure, yes. So within help, there is always link into community if you do product support. There is user guide, of course, if you need any quick tips. But yeah, when you want to go into any kind of questions like how many usages are happening, you can go into community from product support. It might ask you to create a login the first time. Okay. And then once you're in, you can actually go to activations. So there is an article about it, how to check your organization activations. And once you pull it up, usage for a license, it'll give you the page where activations can be tracked. And if you click on it, it'll give you what have been your activations on a certain license. You can pick the license and then, so ours is different. So ours is because we are logged in as More4apps, but typically you'll be able to see there's an article on this. So you can search for the article on the community. So you just go in and check how to check the activations on cloud license. Okay, so it'll just give you that activation link here. Okay.
All right, I have another question for you. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to answer this or we can get someone else, but okay, it says, I'm quite curious how this template is being connected to Fusion apps. If you can elaborate more on the technical stack used behind the screens, behind the scenes.
Okay. So yeah, as you said, Stephanie, we might need to send some documentation just on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is going through, basically when you log in, there's a browser pop-up where you put in your username, password, and it is connecting through web services, entirely through web services. Okay. So when you do this, either it's single sign-on or it is a direct login. It's just a browser pop-up within here. And there is an add-in which resides here. There are BI reports on your Fusion, sitting on the Fusion, and those BI reports fuel a lot of the LOVs and things like that. Okay, and basically your roles and privileges have to be set right. That's part of the first time implementation. But once you have that, this is going through either a single sign-on or your credentials connecting through this. Even the instance when you're connecting is recorded here as a URL. Okay, so you can record the instance URL and then it pulls up the browser, takes you through that and checks your privileges and then communicates with the web services behind the scenes. But yes, I think we should follow up with a more detailed, more
Or
elaborate
technical. Yeah. Yeah, we can
document.
definitely
Yes.
we can do that. Okay. Are there any best practices for handling larger data sets?
Yeah, so when it comes to 5,000, 8,000, that's usually the golden number beyond which people start asking us what are the best practices and things like that. So yeah, definitely if you can chunk it down a little bit to around that mark, 5,000, 8,000, break it down. One thing we always tell when, you start hitting that mark and you see some slowness or, performance issues, then you can trim down your layout. So anything that you don't need, it is validating. It's taxing on the upload and download process. So try to eliminate columns that you don't need so that it's saving that validation, that, grunt work and processing time. So trim it down to really the bare minimum. Try to make little small tabs which are focused on specific things. And then that way it speeds up, makes it easier for large loads. Secondly, chunk it up if you can. And then we can also look at, increase. You can ask your DBA to increase any session timeout if it hits that beyond 15 minutes or sometimes 30 minutes, it can time out on you. So that can be resolved with the help of your administrator. You can sysadmin can increase your session timeout. And then you can look at your resources also, assign a lot more memory space and powerful resources on your machine. So our team can help with evaluating that as well.
Cool. And how about cleaning up old or duplicate records efficiently?
Yeah, so that comes up more on the master data side. So yes, we have ability to look at search for duplicates using a percentage kind of a search. So let's say you're looking for supplier data or customer data and any kind of repetition on that. You can actually go in and put the supplier number or rather the supplier name. Let's say it's Dell and you have Dell Inc. and Dell Incorporated and a lot others. So you can actually go in and put the supplier name as a partial, okay, partial string like that, and do a percentage here, and it'll bring back anything that is beginning with that when you do a download via sheet. So this will help you catch duplicates, and this is there on most of our master data, like customers, items. So you can catch the duplicates, deactivate them easily because there is an end date activation date and date as a column here. You can bring it in, okay, inactive on, and you can start deactivating them. And this is usually helpful when you're migrating or cleaning up data on a regular basis.
Great. Yeah. I currently don't have any other questions, but in the meantime, if you ever have a question, I will be sending out Rachana's info, but there's also another way. Rachana, do you want to share that? We did share that yesterday, so I think that'd be another good way to showcase the discussion boards.
Oh, the community discussions? Yes, sure. Yes. So when I was going into the community, as I showed you before, once you open it from that product support little bookmark here, when you open it up, it brings to this page. And even without logging in, you can actually look up here. Let's say I have an issue with receivables, receipts integrator. I just even put that, not even an issue. If there's an issue, you can type that in. But even if you just punch in this, you can get a whole lot of resources here from the knowledge, from our user guides, even videos. You'll get some handy videos here. And then if you have a specific issue or an error, you can actually look it up and you could hope to get some hits here. Okay. And if you're logged in, you can actually ask a question also. And then our support team or our technical team will usually take a look and get back. There's a lot of discussion forums that happen here. So if I go down here on the discussions, there is some back and forth Q&A happening, and our team tries to answer those. Okay, so no results for this specific, but yeah, there'll be other topics that go on the discussion forum here.
Great. Yeah, I don't have any other questions for you. So I just want to say thank you everybody for joining us. And then the recording will go out probably tomorrow. So just keep an eye out for that. And so thank you. And thank you, Rachana. Any parting words, Rachana?
Thank you. It's always a privilege to help you all out and answer questions and work with you all and engage with you. So thank you for attending today.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.
Thanks. Bye-bye.